Hello, everybody. It is Coffee Pan Dulce time, and it's just Christian and I tonight talking about some stuff. I guess it is Monday or Wednesday, May 25th. Already.
That's right.
Gosh, I mean, we're rolling right up on Memorial Day too. So, hey, Christian, how are you? Boo.
Hey, good. How are you? It is the last Wednesday of May. Wow. Is that crazy?
May went by fast. I don't know if it's because we were so busy and a lot going on, and we'll talk about it on the next show about the local election, stuff like that. But it just seemed like it burned by fast.
Yeah,
at least on my end. I can speak for myself.
It felt like that to me. I mean, we were just talking about, hey, it's the first Wednesday of May. Now we're the last Wednesday, but next month I think is going to drag on because we have 5 Wednesdays. So we'll see how that one. Yeah.
Well, it's International Pride Month, and
that's right. That's true.
There's just a lot going on. I think it's going to be a crazy summer. I think it's
it's going to be.
I think if what I've seen locally in events and just expectations, I think we've kept people cooped up for good reason for 2 years.
Yeah. And I know you're going to talk a lot about that on your show.
Definitely.
Right?
We got plenty to talk about.
Excellent. Well, let's start. Do you mind?
Yeah. We're already started. Let's roll.
All right, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for watching. This is Coffee Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Jenny Gunn, Barb Bacon, and Mama Ruth. We are Mama Ruthless today and Baconless today. So today, as Jenny said, today is Wednesday, May 25th. It is our 193rd consecutive show. We air every Wednesday. So, wow. 193 shows, and our last show of May, and we'll talk about our great shows that we have this summer. But once again, thank you for joining us on Facebook Live, or those who join us on YouTube, or also watch us on Facebook later. But also those now who listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platform. Like, want to do it, Jen? Spotify. So anyway, however you listen to us.
Unfortunately, the people that listen on us on the audio platform don't see us covering our mouth when we say Spotify. So
there's a little thing we got going.
So they don't get in. For y'all that listen to us basically in radio land, that's a long running. So when we came up with the idea to go on the podcast platforms, was the same time that Joe Rogan was
exactly
over all
our luck
stuff that were coming out as he was going mainstream, and people were like, "Oh, this guy's a nutcase." I'm going, "Well, he's always been a nutcase. Y'all just figured out he just got paid $200 million to be a nutcase."
That's crazy.
But in reality, he's always been unhinged. But as many commentators have said, he went from being a fringe, out there, and people didn't pay him any mind because, he's a former TV host, but he kind of disappeared from the national landscape. And then when Spotify said, this guy's getting a lot of followers and we think he's worth the investment, without really thinking about his content, and history and the kind of audience that he would bring. And so they handed him a big old greasy check for $200 million. And of course, when you do that, and you pull somebody onto a national and international mainstream platform like Spotify with that kind of investment, there's also an expectation that they're going to be professional and not insanely racist and problematic. And so, the problem is he's insanely racist and problematic. And,
that's right.
And they didn't anticipate that nowadays, say like a Rush Limbaugh, for example, were to start his career now, he would have gotten run off the national networks. They would have never.
It's a different.
A guy like Rush Limbaugh would be unacceptable now. But I think at the time there just wasn't much alternatives to entertainment when Rush started versus now. There's so much competition. It's so easy to
so much content out there.
Acceptable.
Exactly. I completely agree with you, Jen. So let's go ahead and salute to our. Oh, you know what, Jen? Go ahead and introduce yourself. Let's do that. We'll do it the way we do it every week.
Yeah, we do that tradition.
Sorry.
I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn, a local advocate for the LGBT community, involved with many other different intersections of Charlotte, North Carolina. This is where we broadcast from. This is where we live. So I'm involved with the National Organization for Women, many of the reproductive rights and feminist groups here in Charlotte. In fact, I just went to a thing over the weekend on, was it Saturday night? I think it was Saturday night. And obviously with the pending like that, and doom of Roe versus Wade going away, many women's groups and many feminist groups around the nation are rallying and trying to prepare for the more or less the what if. I don't even think we're even debating whether it's going to happen. I think it's just when, like, whatever that ruling drops is when it drops. And I think groups, because you're already seeing states passing some of the most restrictive bills into law that we've seen in 50 years. So obviously they're ready.
Yep. All right. And I'm Christian County, your other co-host. My buttons are Medicare for all, healthcare for all, Moms Demand Action, Gun Sense legislation, and in my heart, Black Lives Matter, on behalf of Joe Oldham, who used to be a guest of ours. So with that said, now let's salute to our neighbors. This is when we normally do it. Whatever you're drinking this morning, I'm drinking coffee. And then also we do want to thank our Pan Dulce sponsor and supplier here in Charlotte, North Carolina, Manolo's Bakery. Manolo's Bakery is on Central Avenue here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Please visit him. All kinds of wonderful things. And also please support your Black and brown small businesses, or just always try to buy local, All right. Now, with that said, we're going to lose baby Trump and St. Bernie here. So that way it's just Jen and I. Is that okay, Jen?
That's fine with me.
Yeah. All right. So when we're doing these three, when you respond, we'll be losing. So I just want to say bye. Baby Trump Pinata is our silent host, and St. Bernie, they're on every show, and they are just excited to be here. All right. So with that said, we have 3 current events in 30 seconds or less, which we never stick to, but we'll see. We'll see how we go here. Jen, the 3 topics we have are, there was a study that just was released, and it said that, let me just get this right, people in counties that backed Trump were twice as likely to die from COVID. That study was released actually this weekend. So that's the first topic. The second topic is there was some, our Congress passed a big bill to aid for Ukrainian aid. I think I know how many millions of dollars or billions of dollars it is. And then they also passed a bill for mothers. Jenny, you kind of explained that. I'll cover it. Okay. And then the last one, which is very interesting, this actually dropped last Friday, right? Like on a Friday. It is that the Southern Baptist Convention, what we call the SBC, they released a study there. It was done by a nonpartisan group, they asked them to do this study. And the study said there is a huge amount of sex abuse in the Southern Baptist Church that has been covered up over the last 2 decades, even to the point where a lot of evangelical leaders, one of them was quoted as saying, it was more evil than I imagined. So 30 seconds or less, Jen, I know I can see it coming here. So what are your comments on those?
So I can cover the first and the third really easily as duh. I mean, the Southern Baptists, especially growing up in a state that had a ton of Southern Baptists as far as Texas is concerned. 2 things. One, I knew several young wannabe Southern Baptist preachers. That's what they were going to go into, and they were pervs. I mean, they were as horny as I could be. In fact, they loved going to those tent revivals. That's one of the women are the horniest, quote unquote. The second thing is sex scandals, especially in Baptist youth camps, I mean, I mean, they go together like peanut butter and chocolate. I mean, it's like, I'm not shocked about the rapey or abusive nature of the SBC. I don't even know why they did a study to just out themselves. I mean, they know. They already knew that. So it was one of those. And red counties being more deadly with COVID. I mean, I don't even know. Again, this is one of those things. I guess it's intellectuals will study everything just for posterity's sake. You know, you could just overlay the death map with the 100 counties that voted the most for Trump. They amazingly lined up really well. But I guess the biggest thing last week was the Ukrainian aid versus the babies. And, you know, again, Republicans talk about being pro-life and all this. Yet 178 Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives, all Republicans, voted against spending a paltry $28 million to help us produce more formula or come up with more formula for babies, which is more than 0.1% compared to the 40 billion that we just handed over weapons to the, and this wasn't Ukrainian aid. This was $40 billion worth of weapons. Which is just wild that here we'll go send $40 billion worth of weapons to the Ukraine, like the Ukraine's part of the United States, but our own domestic babies just need a paltry $28 million, which is, you know, consider what our federal government spends every day. And it's
dropping the bucket.
That's not even the federal daily spending limit. And it's just unreal how their words versus their actions never line up, you know, the party of democracy. But it's just wild. It's just really wild.
I agree. I agree with you, Jen. The study that the Trump study, I mean, who would have figured? Yeah, we know. I mean, we've been talking about that all summer, actually for 2 years, probably, haven't we? And so, but the study actually confirmed it. You're right. I mean, if you're a Trump supporter, you're not going to believe it. Those of us who know it, I think it just kind of, you know, they did the study. They wanted to find out they're twice as likely.
I will interrupt there. There's probably about 1 million or so of them that will believe it, or they would have believed it.
That's right.
I mean, this is me.
I get it. Yeah.
Confirmed that.
All right. Okay. The Ukrainian aid, I agree with you, Jen. You know, we spent, I don't know how much money we spent to help Ukraine, which I'm glad we have, but it's always so disappointing when Republicans make it so hard for us just to help Americans. And, you know, that is, I know that's a populist view, but it's still, I mean, my goodness gracious, you know, it's.
I think it's a common sense view. I mean,
sure.
I don't know, you know, it just seemed like it faded from the news too fast because to me, if I was a Democrat, especially running for Congress, national Congress, and I had that happen when I was, especially if I was sitting in Congress where I was running an incumbent Republican, I'd be running.
You would pound on that.
The Republican Party hates babies.
Yeah,
but there's no other way of saying it. It's like
because one moment they're on the House floor talking about how Biden's not doing enough for formulas and all this kind of stuff, as if though he makes formulas, and then they vote against it.
I mean, it's like they're telling all the little baby infants out there, pull yourself up by your little booties, you know, and just, you know, put up, you know, when my day, when I was a baby, I found my own formula, you know, and I made my own formula. I got the kitchen with 30. I mean, I could picture MTG after she swigged down a couple bottles of wine and saying, well, these babies need to be be more self-reliant, you know, or something thing like that.
So I agree.
So the $28 billion in the great scheme of things, and in the trillions of dollars that we spend, literally is probably 5 minutes worth of the federal budget. And it's just very bizarre. I
agree. So let me do the last one. And so SBC's sexual scandal. If you grew up in Texas, like you did, I did, Southern Baptists were in certain areas a majority religion. So those of us who grew up with them, this is not a shocker. So apparently the Board of Governors of the Southern Baptist Convention, like their elders, asked this independent group called Guidepost Solutions to do this study because they didn't trust the current leadership to do this study because some people are suing them, some women and so forth. And they did the study, and basically their findings said that the Southern Baptist Convention grossly mishandled claims of sexual abuse and intimidated victims while resisting any suggestions for reform for 20 years. So it was a very damning report. But this is the thing that I get from this report. I don't know if you talk about this on your show, but this is so, you say it all the time. Whenever someone says something, it's usually them. These are the people, the evangelicals, especially the Southern Baptists, they're really bad at this, that are doing this groomer thing, saying groomers, LGBT people are groomers, teachers are groomers. These are the biggest groomers. And so, that's what I would be. I would be campaigning on, that spread on the commercial, about, I don't know how you would do it, but anyway. All right. So anyway, you want to comment on that before we start our,
I think religion and politics should not be allowed. It's in fact, it's against the law. It's just that the law almost never gets enforced because it requires somebody to file a report with the IRS and that they can lose their tax exempt status, like just happened to a Tennessee church with the Kenneth Locke that is high on narcissism and probably cocaine every week when he's doing his sermons and just screaming about Democrats. And so a TikTok person literally posted how to zap Kenneth Locke's church.
Hey, Jen, I want you to go into that because that was actually really, when I saw that, you sent it to me. Let's take our first break, and when we come back, explain to people who are watching and listening what occurred, okay? Because it was really interesting. All right, we're going to be right back. We're going to take our first break on Coffee Pan Dulce. Hey, everyone, thank you so much for watching our Coffee Pan Dulce show every week. Don't forget, you can watch us visually on our video podcast platforms on Facebook and YouTube, but you can also listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all of the other ones that your favorite, whatever your favorite is. Once again, thank you for watching us on Coffee Pan Dulce. We'll dance out. All right, well, welcome back. Okay, so Jen, explain to us, and especially the people who are listening and who are watching, what occurred.
So a couple of weeks ago, Kenneth Locke got up there, was, calling Democrats demons and sex perverts and baby killers and all kinds of stuff. And if you're in my church, and highlighted my church, not your church, but my church, go ahead and get the hell out of here. If you vote Democrat, if you support Democrats, I don't want you in here. And of course, the audience is a rabid, Trump or MAGA type audience. So they just applause.
Yeah.
Well, it made national news and all that. And a TikToker posted on their TikTok, basically the IRS forms you need to do to turn in a nonprofit.
I see.
For doing that.
So he was telling people what you could do.
Millions, probably thousands of people filed against this church.
Oh my goodness.
Revoked their nonprofit status. And so he went on this Sunday, this last Sunday, May 22nd, and said, well, I hired a lawyer and I don't need, they can cram that nonprofit status with a thumb don't shine type deal and just try to big shot it. It's devastating because, it's a big TV church.
Now they're going to be taxed. Yeah.
Now they're going to have to pay taxes just like any other corporation.
I think all churches should, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they should have tax exempt status because I think, they sell one of the biggest intangible,
It's entertainment.
Yeah, it's entertainment. It's church entertainment.
It's entertainment.
Yeah. And I think that especially these churches that rake in millions, if not billions of dollars, like the Catholic Church and the Mormon Church and some of these really large enterprises, Southern Baptist Church. Yeah. I think that considering the only expenses they really have are building and, a few accoutrements, they make a tremendous amount of profit.
Well,
and
you had a really good point.
Status.
Yeah, I mean, you had a really good point. And one of the reasons I think they should be taxed is because they always benefit whenever we give subsidies. So remember when we did the COVID relief?
Yeah.
There were actually churches that got money. They got taxpayer money. They don't even pay any taxes. So,
what if it was like the Roman Catholic Church, which has trillions of dollars? The largest landowner across the world, private landowner, massive, and they're not even an American entity. They're based in Italy, and I'm like, it's so wild that we gave over $1 billion to the Catholic Church, which I don't think any religious entity should get COVID relief.
Yeah,
I don't think they should go die. And so, and again, our subject today is going to be about taxes and stuff like that. So it's a great segue.
Good segue.
Subsidizing things we probably shouldn't subsidize.
Exactly. So, as Jenny said, today's topic is paying for sports stadiums, owners or taxpayers. Perfect example. So, I did the Google machine, and you can too. If you're watching this, just Google, do stadiums pay for themselves? Or if you're listening, you Google it. And it says it's no secret that the typical NFL owner is a billionaire who can actually afford the money to build a quality stadium. There was a study that was done in 2019. It was released, and I'm trying to remember the name of the group. But anyway, it was some study, some major group, economic group. They found that the economics of a sports stadium, there has never been a case where it is actually paid for itself as far as taxpayers recouping the money that they have invested in the stadium. And I think that's really important because the talking points is always, this is going to be good for the economy. We're going to bring jobs in. We're going to do this. But it turns out when they did this study, there was never paid for itself, that you actually would be better off not having a stadium. You would still grow and actually make more money. Give you an example. They said the Atlantic Falcon Stadium cost like $3 billion. I can't remember exact amount. It said they would actually have to employ for 20 years before it actually start paying for itself. And we know that people, these stadiums come around like new every 10 years. And so I think that was really important. So once again, there has never been a stadium in the United States, especially NFL stadiums. I'm not sure the study was on football, that has actually paid for itself. And the study says the NFL could actually loan themselves money to build the stadium because they're all billionaires. So what do you think, Jen? Here, we're in Charlotte. So we'll tell you why it's important, but go ahead.
I find it ironic that many of the football team owners typically are Republicans and that they love those big old socialism checks to subsidize their publicly funded stadiums for their privately owned sports franchises, which I find, especially like the Dallas owner, that's a very problematic person in many different ways. But he's a hardcore Republican, runs his mouth about socialism, but yet, the local government subsidized the Dallas Palace and scratched him a big old check and funded his stadium that he could have easily funded himself.
Or the other billionaires could have loaned him the money.
One or the other. I mean, the NFL is a huge money machine. And I find it ironic that both college sports subsidizes the NFL's talent pool, but yet dumps all of the revenue creating apparatuses on college universities. And it's one of the reasons fees go up so much for college campuses, is in the race to build more state-of-the-art football stadiums and basketball stadiums for their campuses when they're not meant to generate income anyway. And that's not what colleges should be in business for. And then the NFL doesn't help them. and then they turn around and get local municipalities and counties to subsidize their lavish lifestyle and put in these socialism programs for football stadiums when they could take that $3 billion that Atlanta's spending and just put it in a local UBI and put it in a fund and have a universal basic income. The same way with Charlotte. I'd much rather see if it's going to be $2 billion for a football stadium or $2 billion to go into a trust fund and generate money for a universal basic income for the whole county of Mecklenburg. I vote for the UBI. That'll help a lot more people lift them out of poverty than a friggin' football stadium ever will. And if you want to create direct incomes, it's a proven fact that direct cash has the highest benefit for our society. It's a 250% return to our economy.
Sure. Hey,
billions of dollars for a football stadium actually lose money.
Exactly. I want to tell you what they said in this study. One of the things they said in this study is the prevalent idea among team owners seems to be socializing the cost and privatizing the profits. It's harmful and unfair to people who are forced to pay for a stadium that will not help them at all. So this is important here in Charlotte, North Carolina, but everywhere. And the reason is we have an owner here who bought the Carolina Panthers about 3 years ago, I believe. And we have a stadium, Bank of America Stadium, I think is considered one of the oldest stadiums,
still functioning,
relatively speaking. Yeah, exactly. And he has handed, and everyone knew when he bought it, first thing they're looking for is a big stadium so they can, with a dome, so they can do things, maybe have a Super Bowl one day. And, so everyone knows that that's kind of what he's gearing towards. Well, we had a city council election last week for those, and we had some new members coming into the city council. We have some members leaving, and of that city council, only one of the persons is in favor of spending taxpayer money to help him build the stadium. All of the other ones are against it. One of them, I don't know if you're talking about on your show, actually was running at large, who's really in favor of it, who sells liquor and beer. He actually lost. This wasn't the issue, but he actually lost. Yeah. So I thought this is very telling for Charlotte, because the sense I get here is there's not really any energy to move this forward like maybe a Dallas Cowboy fan would or a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, because there's not a lot of legacy, a lot of tradition here. Carolina's still a new team. So, and many people who've moved here aren't Panther fans. They're fans for where they came from. So
or they just don't watch football.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly. That's true.
And I think too, whether you're a fan or not, I grew up, Dallas was the team for my family. My dad's a fanatical Dallas fan. Still is, as far as I know. And I know you are too.
Yeah.
And and I think pretty much every red-blooded Texan pretty much is a Dallas fan, just based on the history and the success and all that.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't justify ridiculous spending. And when so many metropolitan areas have much larger needs, for local spending being spent for the people in infrastructure and environment. There's so many things that we could do to help even small businesses and even solopreneurs. There's so many programs that could come up. Cities now, like Chicago, for example, just enacted a UBI for Chicago. They had, I want to say, almost 200,000 applicants in the first day. It broke the internet, and it's going to be one of those really super successful programs. And we have more of an obligation of doing stuff like that than we ever. If we're going to subsidize somebody, let's subsidize the poorest people in our county and our city versus some billionaire that wants some kind of fancy play toy for his foosball team, foosballs for the devil.
So hey, listen, let's take our second break, and when we come back, let's talk about. And you have a very good point. It's not really fair for those who aren't football fans, taxpayers, to be paying for things like this. So let's talk about that when we come back, okay? We're going to take our second break on Coffee Pan Dulce. We'll be right back. Hey, I'm Christian Cano. I wanted to thank you so much for watching our Coffee Pan Dulce shows. I also want to thank you so much for watching us on our video podcast, which is on Facebook and YouTube, but also for listening to us on our audio podcast shows on your favorite audio podcast platform, like Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podcast Chaser, and many more. Once again, thanks for watching us and listening to us on Coffee Pan Dulce. Bye, y'all. Welcome back, everyone. So, as a avid Dallas Cowboy fan, grew up, as you mentioned, and I am just fanatic about the Dallas Cowboys. You would think that I would go, oh, yeah, let's spend the money. I'm not. Well, first of all, the Cowboys are Dallas. I'm not here in North Carolina. So I will say I was one of the persons who was happy they built that new stadium, because when they opened, I actually lived in Texas and went to see the new stadium and all the wonderful. So I actually have my inaugural season cup that I still use to drink water out of on the show. And so, but you are not a fan. Yeah.
It's an easy sell to a lot of people, because there's a lot of people that have money that go to the games, because first of all, NFL tickets are extremely expensive.
Yeah, they are.
Most of them now sell PSLs or personal, licenses to even be eligible.
Yeah, just to buy the ticket
in the stadium, or you go to the aftermarket or whatever. Which in some stadiums you can't, because they're sold out, like Green Bay that has a 20-year waiting list and so on and so forth. But anyway, the funding systems for most municipalities and counties, one, are typically very regressive taxes, like property taxes, which really hurt the people on fixed incomes, like the elderly or medically retired people, or sales taxes, which is also very regressive because it hits poor people the hardest. And so when you're funding $2 to $4 billion worth of money to build a modern, up-to-date, fancy dancy stadium, you're obviously going to have to levy some type of special tax for that revenue, because cities can't go into debt. So so they can't go into deficit spending. So the other deal is they're going to have to raise tax somewhere that's typically progressive, that hits poor people the hardest.
I agree. But you know what, Jenny? But what you're saying is really important. This is one of those issues that I think can be a unifying issue. I know there's not a lot of issues that maybe a lot of us agree on, but this is one of those issues. I think if you live in Charlotte or wherever you live, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, Libertarian, unaffiliated, we all agree. Not very many of us want to pay for a billionaire. So this is how I look at it. If you want a new house, you think your house is getting old, you go out and buy a new house. You do. You don't ask all your neighbors, hey, can you pitch in and help me buy this new house? That's exactly what Tepper is doing. He's saying, I want a new stadium. I want you guys to help me buy this new stadium. So it is really corporate welfare. It's socialism, isn't it? This is crazy.
By the Republican very definition, it's socialism. And again, typically these guys, I don't know what David Tepper's politics are. I don't even know if he even comments on politics. I just know that Jerry Jones does. But typically most NFL owners, franchise owners, are fairly conservative. They typically are Republicans. And they run their mouths about socialism and Democrats and all the time. Do they need a new stadium? And in most municipalities, large cities, typically are Democratic controlled, just because, we run things better, and we just do. We're more competent, and we're not eating.
And they can easily. And you would think, and this report said they can easily afford it. The NFL, they can afford to loan the owner the stadium, even if they added some type of tax on their own tickets.
So here's my thing with giving large corporations of any kind money.
Okay.
Typically, these people, again, are conservative and talk about, I'm self-made and I pull myself with my bootstraps. And it's usually the common story, whether it's Elon Musk, pulled himself up with his family's bootstraps.
Exactly.
But a lot of these people have generational income. Like I don't know David Tepper's story, but typically speaking, most do.
Yeah.
Or they're quite a bit older, and they're high wealth millionaires or billionaires, or they're with an ownership group.
Sure.
The collective wealth is in the billions. They're not using coupons to buy these franchises. But one of the ironies is like you said, they have the ability to go into debt. They have a huge organization like the National Football League that has international revenue. There's a million thing. They could just charge $5 more for a team jersey.
Exactly.
Or charge whoever is broadcasting the deal to say, this year you're going to come up with 5% more revenue to get the lock-in because we got to build North Carolina football stadium. But that should be coming from them, and they need to figure it out. It's their problem. And absolutely, I'm 110% against it, because the only people that are benefiting from it are the wealthy people that can go to an NFL game.
Sure.
And the billionaire owner that's going to benefit from the revenue, that they're not going to revenue share with the city or the county for tax relief. Now, if a certain percentage went back to pay down the debt on that, and it was shared with the deal until the stadium was paid off, like if there was an ad valorem to those taxes and said, well, every seat that you sell for anything, whether it's a tractor pull, a football game, a soccer game, or whatever, a percentage of those ticket sales have to go to the deal. A percentage of your TV revenue, because you're using that as your show house, has to go to back to the city and back into the city coffers. That would be.
But don't you think? Hey, Jen, don't you think even if I'm trying to look at it from all points of view, all right? Because this is going to happen to us, I think, in the next year or year and a half after the elections. It'll be next year because in between the city council elections. Even if you were, when we football's a company, and the Carolina Panthers are a company, all right? In order to entice them, I can see maybe doing something like we would do to Apple or Microsoft or Amazon, and maybe give them some, tax credits if you hire this many people, or, for the first 5 years, you reduce land taxes and all that. I can see that. But we would never say, but Apple, we're also going to build.
We're going to build your office infrastructure, your manufacturing infrastructure. We're going to hand you a $3 billion facility, with no strings. You're exactly right. Most of the times when you bring in a Mercedes-Benz like Alabama did, or Toyota did for San Antonio, Texas, and ironically, here's one of the big things. So 10 different states bid on that Toyota plant when it came up for bid in the early 2000s.
They bid the trucks,
the Toyota truck plant. And Texas's actual financial commitment was the lowest of the 10 states. And the reason they did it was that the market made sense to them, because Texas is the number one truck market for consumer residential trucks, for individual trucks, not commercial trucks.
And the ability to hire people, and so it's not as expensive, right? Yeah.
And 25% of the market, 25% of all consumer trucks, retail trucks, stay in Texas. So 1 out of 4 of those trucks that roll off that line are going to stay in that state. So it lowers their transportation costs. That's one of the reasons they wanted to build it in the United States versus building them in Japan. And so only 3 of the 4 are going to leave the state, and most of them are going to stay in the South. And so the reality was that it made sense, and we didn't have to throw a lot of money at it to win that deal. They just wanted some infrastructure things, which San Antonio had great infrastructure. All they had to do was extend some train tracks about 10 more miles. There was a bunch, just some minor things, and the package deal was like $180 million or $200 million, which is a fraction of a football cost. But it brought in 12,000 high-paying jobs between suppliers and the actual high-wage earners that would work in the manufacturing plant of that deal. That I think at that time in 2003 started at about $24 an hour. Now, reverse that to a football stadium that only plays 8 home games a year.
Yep, they're part-time employees.
Almost no local companies get to be a vendor at these
Exactly.
stadiums. You don't get any local small business impact. So Manolo's Bakery, for example, is ineligible to be a vendor at that deal. And if there is a local company, it's usually a big local company that's usually a buddy of, of the owner or somebody who's political suck. And so these are just good old, we're funding a good old boy club to help the good old boys and help the good old boy fans. But literally, that 1% of our population could go jump in a lake for all I care, because I'm not one to subsidize wealthy people's lifestyles when they let me flap in the wind. So, as a poor person, I'm just saying, I'm not real pumped about helping people that have high incomes that could go a state over and still go to the football games. Like, no, y'all can fall downstairs for all I care. It's brutal.
I thought that was really interesting what you just said, because those who are familiar with the Carolina Panthers, which if you're watching this in other states, you probably have no idea what we're talking about. David Tepper at the Carolina Panthers, their practice facility used to be right next to, or still is technically, the football stadium downtown Charlotte. He decided to open up a practice facility across the state lines, which is not very far, about 30 miles or 20 miles, I don't know how many, in South Carolina, to build a practice facility there. It's going to be this huge complex. It's very similar to the Dallas Cowboys when they moved to Frisco, stadium, all kinds of wonderful stuff. And they gave them all this, allegedly they were supposed to give them all kinds of rebates and all kinds of stuff. And I jokingly said at the time, who wants to live in South Carolina? The players aren't going to live in South Carolina. They're going to live in Charlotte. So they're going to have to drive across to go to practice. Turns out, and I know he did it one way. One of the reasons he did it was to tell North Carolina, Charlotte, hey, listen, I can move this anytime I want. That's like his threat. And there was all this talk, well, is he going to move to South Carolina? And what's going on? Turns out they didn't even want to help him. And he stopped building because the taxes that they said they were supposed to do, right?
I don't mean to cut you off, but they were. So I believe I think it was Rock Hill was the one that did on that.
Rock Hill, South Carolina.
They defaulted on the first payment. So here's the thing. And here's the rub. They got to, it's like when you go on a date with somebody and they're searching for their checkbook and their wallet. Like, I think I left that in my other jacket, kind of thing. But the whole city of Rock Hill did that to David Tepper and said, I think I left that in my smoking jacket or something.
Can you cover me?
my other car or something. So can you pick up the tab? And so they just basically said, I don't think they ever made the payment.
They didn't.
And so
he said, he's saying that they defaulted on their agreement. They're saying they didn't, because the way their agreement is they would give their best effort to create these bonds. And they did recreate their best. We were in a global pandemic and they couldn't sell any bonds. And so their attorneys and actually, we don't normally agree with the governor of South Carolina. He's kind of a kook, but he basically, even his comments were, well, I hope they work it out.
Thoughts and prayers.
Exactly.
To be here and make a separate. And it's a practice facility. So, these practice facilities are another NFL scam, and it literally is a scam. Because they also pulled that stunt with San Antonio, where San Antonio bid on the Dallas Cowboys practicing. Get this was in the early 2000s as well, when I was still living there. They set up these grass plots out into so we had a football stadium there, the Alamo Dome.
Alamo Dome.
And they took these, but they didn't practice inside the dome. They practiced outside, and they put
the parking lot?
these flats of grass, actual live grass out there in the parking lot. And so they were practicing out in the parking lot in the very cool weather of San Antonio, Texas, which is like 400 degrees. So basically, the players were like used to practicing in Thousand Oaks, California, which has got like 70
And they're like, this is crazy.
and are practicing indoor and outdoors, and they practice at a college campus out there. I think it was St.
Andrews
or St. Andrews or something like that.
Yeah, one of those.
But the temperature was pretty moderate there.
Yeah.
To switch it to San Antonio, which is not unusual for it to be between 105 and 120 degrees.
That's crazy.
Right in downtown San Antonio with all all these buildings, right? So the Alamo does sit, it actually literally sits right next to I-37.
Yeah.
So they're practicing next to an interstate, in between an interstate and an air-conditioned Alamo Dome. Yeah. They're practicing outside in San Antonio heat of about 110 degrees. That didn't last very long. Yeah. I think that lasted a season or two. Yeah, and the players said, Jerry, you ain't going to have a team. We are all quitting, taking our big paychecks with us. We are not practicing in the parking lot. I mean, it was so bootleg, even local people went to laugh at the Dallas Cowboys.
That's crazy.
It was the dumbest thing. One of the dumbest things I've ever seen, a typical Texas thing.
Sure.
And people were going to go watch the Dallas Cowboys practice, which I thought was also awesome.
It probably sounded like a great idea, come down to San Antonio, watch the Cowboys, go to the Riverwalk, so it was probably
except
like
you had an air-conditioned stadium that you weren't practicing.
But they didn't go in there. Yeah. Okay. Hey, listen, we're gonna take
a nice 72 degrees versus like
100 Anyone who's been to San Antonio knows it gets hot in the summer. It's hot all year.
Should have been a harbinger for the Republican Party right there.
That's right. Hey, let's take our last break. This last break is going to talk about a show that Jenny runs. It drops about 25 to 30 minutes after this show on Wednesdays. It's called Two Queers in a Truck, where we just let it all hang out. More than this, believe it or not. So we're going to take our last break. We'll be right back on Coffee Pan Dulce.
Up next is Two Queers in a Truck with Jenny and Christian. And hope you guys tune in. We'll see you in about 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And please join us. I know she's got a lot of topics, great topics that she's going to be talking about. And she's always keeps her on time, her topics, unlike what I do. So, all right. So here's the thing, Jen. My prediction is, which is never right. My prediction is the Panthers will leave in the next 2 years because he'll be upset. He'll find some reason to be upset, whatever it is. He will leave because there's no political will here, and we have other priorities here. My prediction is that they will leave, and I think they're going to go to San Antonio. San Antonio has always wanted a professional football team. What do you think?
San Antonio will never build.
Where else will they go?
Well, I mean, that's why they're not leaving, because there's no. So San Antonio is a 40th rated media market, and this is a top 10.
Yes,
they're never going to leave. The NFL won't let him leave.
Yeah,
and so it has to be approved by the NFL owners.
The owners, and
they can't.
Which would I agree with you, Jen, because it would
abandon the Charlotte market.
Yeah, and Jerry Jones probably wouldn't let him go to San Antonio because a lot of his fans are in San Antonio. The Latinx community supports the Cowboys tremendously, and it would pull revenue away from them.
Well,
Houston.
So it wouldn't so much do that. So the San Antonio media market is very, very small. I said, it's a 40. It's one of the reasons they can't get an NFL team. They'll never get an NFL team. Mm-hmm. It's because San Antonio is still considered even though it's huge city, over 1.5 million people.
Yeah,
it's actually technically the second largest city in Texas behind Houston. So Houston proper is, I think, close to 3 million, and I think San Antonio, I believe, is 1.5 million. Dallas is just barely at 1 million, but it's
in Dallas-Fort Worth. Yeah,
but the metroplex itself, is like huge. 6 million, 7 million people.
Exactly.
Because some of the suburbs are almost as big as Dallas now. But the DFW area and Houston market are two huge media markets, two monster markets. San Antonio is not, and San Antonio is the only city of its size, it doesn't have an NFL team.
I just don't think they're.
It's never been viable. It's never been a viable market. Texas can only afford 2 football teams as it is. Both of the owners of teams are going to fight it, and you got to have a unanimous vote on that, and you got to have a unanimous vote to allow them to move. It's not going to happen. It's just
okay. Well, I just don't see currently right now. Anything can change with elections. But currently, right now, Tepper doesn't have the people on our city council. No. I don't think he even has them in our state house or in our county convention who have the political will. And thank goodness we don't, because I think that he should just borrow the money from the other owners and they can build the stadium, to themselves, and they can buy the land, do the things
or renovate.
We would have to do.
Renovate the one you got.
Yeah, exactly.
Do a home show version of a stadium, like they do those renovation shows on there, and renovate what you got. A lot of college teams have done that. A lot of NFL teams have done that. Where, first of all, real estate in Charlotte is not easy to come up with. I don't even know whether to build a new one. Second of all, where it's located really benefits the city the best, and so instead of spending $3 or $4 or $5 billion. Take a solid $250, $300 million, which he easily has. He could easily come up with it, because obviously, if you can't afford it, you shouldn't do it.
I just don't think he would ever spend his own money, because none of the other owners have spent their own money, and the NFL doesn't want him to spend his own money because it would set a precedent, and then other cities would say, "Well, they did it in Charlotte," and so I do think this is going to be a test. I think we're going to be one of the first big cities to lose. Well, St. Louis lost a team. Everyone's kind of lost a team periodically, with people kind of uprise and say we're not doing it, and they move them, to LA or some other places. For Oakland Raiders moved to Vegas because Vegas was saying we want the stadium, we're willing to pay all this money, and they're not going to.
So the Vegas situation is not comparable to us. Okay. So first of all, Vegas is one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. The second of all, sports gambling is huge. To have a prestigious franchise like the Oakland Raiders or formerly the Oakland Raiders, LA Raiders. Sure. I think there was the San Diego Raiders for a little while, for like 2 minutes or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know more than I do. Had a tour. They've toured more than most rock bands have. And they've been the mobile franchise for a long time, and now they're in Vegas. But Vegas is one of these sports teams for like decades. Yeah. Second of all, it is built for sports franchises with all the hotel rooms, the subsidized hotel rooms because of gambling. Yeah. It makes the perfect destination. Also, Oakland fans and even LA fans are only travel 2 hours. It's just a short drive to Vegas.
Yeah, so they're going to spend money and travel there.
And Vegas is fun, so do a little weekend trip, do a little gambling, go smoke some legal weed, partake of the bunny ranch outside.
I forgot you can. Yeah, you can do that in Nevada now. I completely forgot about that.
Not in the city of Vegas technically, but outside of the state of or the city of Vegas, it's legalized prostitution, legalized sex work. Oh, and then, it's just it's the perfect glitz place.
Sure.
Unlike Charlotte, where are they gonna move to in South Carolina?
Well, yeah. I mean, they've been thinking about it. I know we're talking. I know if you're watching this or listening to us outside of Charlotte, you probably have no idea what we're talking. But imagine Charlotte, any city. We've got a beautiful skyline. The stadium is smack downtown Charlotte. There's no room. Now there is an old Charlotte Pipe and something that's a company that's been there for 50 years, and they make pipes and they have put their property up for sale, and it's actually big enough for him to buy it. But they have said that they have not been approached by him, that he is not in a. I don't know. I don't know what could happen.
But
it's very expensive. I don't think he wants to pay the amount of money that they want, because it's very, very valuable property.
And these stadiums, first of all, these new stadiums are scams.
Sure.
So this is I'm gonna call it what it really is. It's a scam. It's a complete and total scam. And because the number one source of revenue for any NFL team is TV money.
Yep.
Okay, broadcasting. That's what makes them the money. That makes the NFL billions upon the billions of dollars. It's the number one revenue source. Football seats do make them some money, and the skyboxes too. But you can just add more skyboxes. You can just stack those bad boys up to the heavens if you want to. I mean, look at the buildings they're building in Uptown.
So are you saying that you think that? I mean, what are you saying? I mean, you're saying that he
UT
just
and
wants
Tennessee
more.
Both just added skyboxes to their college football stadiums. They expanded the existing stadium.
My former college, TCU, just built a whole new. The old stadium is the same place. It's just a little higher.
Just packed and stacked and racked it.
Yeah,
and you can't tell me with all the developers that we have that we don't have the technology just to stack skyboxes onto the existing skyboxes. It's not going to affect the aesthetic of Uptown.
Sure.
What will affect the aesthetic of Uptown is an empty stadium sitting there like a giant albatross. So this idiot, if he wants to help Charlotte and really values the Charlotte, he needs to just expand what he's got. Just like, versus renovating your house versus buying a new one. He has a beer budget with champagne taste. And so if he wants the Champagne, if he wants the Dom Perignon of stadiums, he can ask his brethren and the good
all the other ones
of the NFL and say, hey, I left my wallet back at home, but if you other 31 owners could just slip me a little bit of an advance, we can all build the stadium together. What do you think?
I can say this, that I know you're going to be talking about some things. We only got about 5 minutes. We're going to try to close down here. I can say this, that David Tepper is not a stupid man. He made his money in stock market or, hedge funds, or I'm not sure exactly what he does. He's a numbers guy. I can tell you he's got some really good people probably working for him. And he has been thinking of this 2, 4, 5 years down the road. I assure you, there were several candidates that were running for city council during this current election that he was behind. He was funding them somehow, whether it was through a PAC. One of them, the one who raised the most money, I assure you, he was trying to get that person in because that person was all gung-ho about building a new stadium. The other person who got the fourth amount of votes was being funded by some people too. That's Smudgy Mitchell. He's for the stadium. I assure you he was helping, trying to get him elected. There were some other candidates unfortunately, he picked the wrong candidates. So, I think I think you're going to see him trying to put some people or a slate of people that in the next election, that they would vote for it. But anyway, so we only got 4 minutes left. That's my prediction. Never comes true, but so, all right. Well, we're going to close down. What do you think? Get ready for your show.
I was playing the Hey Hey Goodbye song.
Oh, okay. All right.
If he wants to pull the Charlotte football team out of here, good riddance. Where is he going to go? To me, I don't care. I realize he made a lot of money. He's probably really, really smart. Charlotte needs to stand their ground, unlike what we did with the RNC. And get into a 30, 40, 50-year debt when, if we learned anything from COVID, it was that we need to position, whether we're talking about city, state, or federal, we don't need to subsidize anything related to millionaires and billionaires. We have to, as a nation, if we're going to subsidize anybody, we need to subsidize baby formula. We need to subsidize our roads and bridges.
Sure.
We have thousands of roads and bridges that are sorely needed repair. We need to subsidize our public education system. There's a ton of things that we need to spend our the last is foosball stadiums.
Yeah. Okay, Jen, I want to stay on time. So with that said, we want to thank you for watching us. We're going to go around our Brady Bunch screen, which is Jenny and me. Okay. Jenny, tell us where you're going to be over the next week for our next show.
Well, I'm going to be right here along with my buddy Christian. And we are going to hear in about 15 to 20 minutes, 2 Queers and a Truck will drop. So stay tuned. I don't have a lot of big plans. Of course, Memorial Day's coming up, and probably going to stay pretty chill. And, if it's hot, I'm probably going to stay inside, or I'm going to work, or who knows, I may even pop up and surprise Christian and Andrew, who knows. But anyway, Memorial Day weekend for me, as a former employee in the tourism business, was always one of my most dreaded, most painful weekends that I ever worked for decades. And so truthfully, honestly, I don't look forward to Memorial Day weekend. It's just not a big thing for me.
Hey, perfect timing. I was bringing back St. Bernie and Trump Pinata. Yeah, okay, all right. All right. Well, I will be camping. So I'm, and hopefully, as Jenny said, well, you don't know. But anyway, I might be seeing you this weekend. So it'd be really exciting to see you in person. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And I just want to talk very briefly about some of the shows we're going to have in the summer. We have 5 shows in June, 4 shows in July, and 5 shows in August because of the amount of Wednesdays. And I think June shows we'll be talking about why we still need Pride Month, especially with all the hate that's going around in the country right now against our LGBTQ plus family members. And then we'll be talking about, I'm sure, the Supreme Court ruling that will come out, and I think it's going to be the Summer of Rage. We'll talk once again right before Juneteenth about Juneteenth, and then we'll touch marriage equality. 7 years from June on our show will be the 7-year anniversary of marriage equality that was passed. And then the last show, we've changed it up a little bit. We always talk about who is America for July 4th, what makes up America. We're going to talk about who is America plus the great replacement theory, because there are some people who think that this country is changing too fast. All right. So I think that's it. Anything else, Jen?
Yeah, I think.
All right. Okay. I'll put the music on and you get us out here. Let's see if this works. Bye, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Bye, baby.
Good show, Jen.
Hey, y'all, thank you for watching and being our loyal fans. We appreciate you. We hope you take you every week. If not, still come and see us. Be safe this weekend, and happy Memorial Day.
Bye, y'all. See you next week.
Next up, thanks for watching Coffee Pan Dulce. Next up is 2 Queers and a Truck. Stay tuned.